I'm James Swanwick. Welcome to the show. Today we're talking to a great friend of mine who I've known now probably about 8 years. His name is Daniel DiPiazza. He is a serial entrepreneur and author. He's the new host of the New Wave podcast. He's based out of Portland, Oregon. He's 34 years old. He's been married to Sarah for about 5 years, and they've been together for, I think, almost 15. And today we're going to be talking about some peculiar topics, not peculiar, but left field topics like ayahuasca, 5-MeO-DMT, plant medicine, essentially, non-traditional ways of reducing stress and anxiety, psychedelics, dreams, holotropic breathing. So I want to just a disclaimer before we get into this. I am not encouraging anyone to do any of the modalities that we are talking about, that we're about to talk about, except maybe intentional breath work. We talk a little bit about holotropic breathing, but I'm not encouraging anyone to take plant medicines. Some people get very triggered by it. I know I did for years. I finally experimented with it, and I share my experiences in this upcoming conversation. And that's all it is. I'm just sharing my experience. This is not me pushing you into doing it or suggesting you do it as a way to reduce cravings around alcohol or anything. Just sharing what worked or didn't work for me. And Daniel was also just sharing what worked or didn't work for him. Daniel has an amazing interactive audio series to expand your mind and improve your business, especially if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner. You can check that out at newwaveentrepreneur.com, which will give you a little bit more detail. But this is a great conversation to really figure out why we choose to drink, or why we choose to get out of procrastination, why we tend to be in procrastination or discomfort. A lot of times the reason why we drink is because there's something underneath the surface that we're not quite aware of, which makes us feel a bit unhappy with our lives. We can seemingly have all of the things that a human being would want. Maybe we've got a husband or a wife or children, or we make good money, or that we're healthy, we're alive, we're safe, but yet we still feel troubled for certain areas of our lives. If that feels like you, then listen into today's episode, because we talk about that. And yeah, let's just get into it, shall we? This is a conversation with me and Daniel DiPiazza, a great friend of mine, serial entrepreneur and author, and the host of the New Wave podcast. Here we go. Daniel, tell me about the dream that you had.
Okay. I was telling you, I gave you a little snippet before the call. For the past 20, 25 years, I've had this recurring dream, and it's almost every night for at least one part of my dream. And that dream, or the theme in that dream, is that I'm either trapped in a jail or a prison cell, or a room that I can't get out of, or a parking garage. Recently, that was one. And the whole time I'm trapped in the parking garage, there's fear of being trapped, and there's the fear of never getting out. There's also usually something pursuing me, some sort of like dangerous agent, some sort of monster, some sort of terror figure. And my feeling in this dream is of fear, but also of confidence that I will be able to escape, even though most nights I almost never escape. Usually only 1 out of 100 times will I escape. Now, this dream has been recurring for me for, over 2 decades, and I kind of just hadn't thought much of it. And recently, maybe a couple months ago, I was at Powell's bookstore with my wife, and we were picking out some books, and she picked up a copy of Carl Jung's biography, who is, a very well-known psychotherapist from the early 1900s, and really a genius. And his book is called Memories, Dreams, Reflections. And this book it's an incredible, fantastic autobiography. Have you read it?
I haven't, no, but I've researched a lot on Carl Jung on YouTube and podcasts and things like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. But what is so interesting about this book is that first of all, it's almost his complete life, because he started writing this, when he was 81, and I think he died maybe only a few months later. He started writing when he was 81, and he died when he was 84. So he finished it right up until his death. And this book goes all the way back to his very earliest memories, essentially pre-logic memories, where he has his basically where he identifies his subconscious, where he's able to understand who he was from the very beginning. But what's so different about this book is that rather than talk about just his biography, his things he achieved, which is what most autobiographies are, he's talking about his emotional state and his mental state during that entire process. So it's an entire narration of his inner journey, which is really unique. And he talks a lot in the book about how he's connected his unconscious to his conscious. And he gives many examples of that with himself and with patients. And I was starting to think about this process in my head and getting really fascinated by it. And then I put together some more pieces of my own puzzle. I'd known that I had some sort of like a lung problem, or maybe a lung collapse when I was an infant, but I didn't really know the full details of the story up until just a few days ago. And I was talking to my mom because I now that I'd read this Jung, just the autobiography, a couple of his other books now, I started to process things. I said, there has to be a reason for this dream, because it's not, these dreams have a personal meaning for me that's trying to come out. And so I started to think about it more. And so I was sharing this with my mom. And for the first time, she described the entire circumstance of my birth, which was that, coming out, first of all, I never really had a conception of how small I was. When you're a premature child, I can even show you too. She sent me a picture. My limbs were the size of my dad's finger. You have to think about that. I mean, he has big hands, but think about that. Like, I was so incredibly small, 4 pounds. I mean, I'm taking care of chihuahuas that are bigger than that. Really, really baby ones. So that right there is already coming out early is a life-threatening experience. Okay. Just making it out in that condition, not guaranteed. But I learned later that both of my lungs collapsed during the birthing process, and that when I tried to cry, I couldn't, because I could make no sound. So I couldn't even scream, which is another part of my recurring dream, which I don't even feel like going into. Okay. And so they had to immediately take me to the infant ICU. They put me in this box. They put 2 tubes in each side of my chest into my lungs through the ribs. And I have 1 scar still that I can see from that. And then they put 2 spinal taps into my spine, my little baby spine. Think about being 4 pounds. I was like maybe 6 weeks premature to a teenage mom. So not that much time baking in the oven. Okay. Very weak.
Right. And
to live through all that, I had jaundice. I didn't know that. So there's like some liver issues, I think liver or kidney, and she said there was a tube in my head as well. Not only that, they put me in a box, prison cell, basically stacked like you'd be like in a shoe rack, like in a baby shoe rack, but like in a plastic box. But I couldn't be touched for 2 weeks after being given birth. And I'd known some of these details before, but after reading some of the stuff with Jung and thinking about the dream and then hearing the whole story and complete story, I said, there's no way that there isn't a connection here. And this has opened up a whole new world of self-exploration for me, because I feel like I've just learned something about myself for the first time.
Yeah. And what do you feel you are learning? Like, what's the connection that you just referred to?
Well, I think I think that there has been probably some trauma created through that birth experience. And I'll give you another example. I do a lot of different types of training. So I'll do weight training, or I'll do jujitsu, martial arts. I'll do those types of things. And during my whole life of training, which I've done a fair amount of different things, I always have had a fear response when my breathing gets to a certain level where I feel like I'm at capacity or over capacity. And I always push through, but I always wondered if everyone else is having that response. It seems like irrational to me, but this makes it seem more rational to me because my first obstruction was breathing.
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah. So you have a peculiar or a different type of relationship with breathing in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also had a near drowning experience when I was a kid that I'm now just thinking about when I was very young, and so I'm sure that has an effect. And it's not like I'm sitting around thinking about it all day, but it has to be collected in there.
Yes. And then what about confined spaces as well?
I don't feel too claustrophobic. I mean,
okay,
that's not my main big thing. I think one of the things that I'll note from the dream is that even in the dream, I always feel confident I'll get out, which to me is a good sign.
Yes.
And that's something that even just through this experience, I become proud of myself on, because I hadn't picked up on that detail before. But when I think about it, I always say, I'm going to get out of here. And usually I kill a bunch of people trying to get out. So usually it's a very good fight, and it just ends. I wake up before I can solve the problem, but it's never like I'm defeated, which I think is a good thing. And
do you recognize that you do that in your business life or your marriage or in other areas of your modern day life?
Absolutely my personality. That's absolutely my personality. So it seems to me that there is a parallel there.
Yeah. How long have you been married?
We have been married. We've been married for 5 years and married for 5 years together for 13.
Okay, got it. And what does your wife say about this when you share your insights with her?
Well, she gave me a very good suggestion, I took her up on it. I scheduled my first hypnotherapy appointment.
Uh-huh.
I want to see what's in there.
You're going to go deep.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm pretty sure hypnosis works. I mean, I'm pretty sure it works.
What was that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, with the Chris Nolan movie? What was it?
Was it The Illusionist or the Intrigue or The Prestige?
Inception. No,
Inception.
Inception, I think.
Yeah. Totally.
They go into dream states all the time, right? They go into a dream underneath a dream, or dream inside of a dream. I should say. I think
that's real to a certain extent. I mean, yes, some of the stories that I've heard about hypnosis are pretty intense, but it makes sense as to why it would work.
So it seems like this recurring dream is now you're having a profound insight into its meaning. How old are you as we're recording this?
34.
Okay, 34. So do you now look back on, say, let's just say your adult life, and you start to see, oh, okay, that's why I made that decision. That's why I made that choice. That's why I am this way. Oh, okay. Like, are you starting to now put the pieces together even more specifically?
I think that making that one connection will have several different overarching consequences if I look back at my life. And what it's really shown me is almost like it's just been confirmation that there are other things to dig for as well. There are other things I'm not aware of. And so what I plan to do with this information is to go even deeper into my self-work, specifically, with some of these new insights. I'm going to do, for instance, there's a really well-known physician named Stanislav Grof, who for years participated in LSD research and then developed holotropic breathing. You know about this?
I do, yeah.
And I was introduced to his methodology a while ago, and I'm familiar with it, but I haven't taken any chance to really study it. I've done a few deep breathwork sessions that have been powerful, and people have really crossed over with these things. But I am now enrolling in the workshops to develop my skills as a practitioner of this. And I think that will help me to go a little bit deeper with my own work and also help out clients too. Because a lot of times if we're doing psychedelics or if we're just doing intense healing sessions, it's really useful to be able to have this practical skill of dealing with altered states so that you can learn to work through your own, different traumas, shadows, past lives, integrations. And so I think it could be, and I'm kicking this off just from having found these understandings about myself.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about modalities of breath work and psychedelics and things like that. This is not for everyone. Like, some people listening here will be like, oh man, I don't want to go there. Other people are more curious and interested about it, but like without judgment, I guess I'm inviting the listener not to have judgment. And also we're not going to have judgment in talking about it, but let's talk about some of these things.
Sure.
So let me just share a couple of my own experiences first, just to put it out there. So the holotropic breath work, all it is very controlled breathing. Mm-hmm. But the first time I did this, I was in Spokane, Washington, and I was at Ben Greenfield's house. Ben Greenfield is a pretty well-known health influencer, wellness expert. And I'm part of a business mastermind that I've been in with him for about 10 years, almost a decade. And there are about 25 men who go to his house once a year for about 2 or 3 days. And we stay over and, we do men's work and support each other. And he's got a backyard obstacle course and we throw spears and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we did this holotropic breath work. A friend of mine called James Solderina actually hosted it. And there were about 12 of us doing it. And I was laying down on my back. I was doing this breath work. He's playing some music and, he like, I mean, you really got to go for it. Like he encourages you. You go very deep, breathing right into your chest and your lungs and breathing out through the mouth. And it's very uncomfortable for the first 5 minutes because it just changes your state. You get lightheaded. I hated it, to be honest, the first 5 minutes. Like I hated the first 5 minutes. And then you cross over into about minute 10. And I'll tell you what happened to me. I literally thought that I was laying down on an electric blanket or a hot water bottle because my whole back started to get, first of all, warm and then very hot. And I was on a yoga mat. Like they'd put some yoga mats out, and I thought, oh, this is one of Ben Greenfield's weird electric powered yoga mats, which gives you warmth or something. No, my body generated so much heat that I thought that I was literally lying on hot coals from doing this breath work. I couldn't believe it for the life of me that it was just a yoga mat.
It's called breath of fire, what you just did.
Yeah. And that was profound. And then, after you've done the breath work, like the very intentional breathing, you're asked to kind of hold your breath. And then afterwards, you kind of asked to just stop doing very deep breathing and just kind of let your natural breath take over. I went into what I can only describe rather as a psychedelic state, which is colors and black holes. And it's so hard to explain, but it was like going to another realm. Not even sure what I mean by another realm, but it was, if you hold your breath and you squeeze really hard, your whole body, and you tense up, you can create that in your mind, right? You can create the black hole and the colors. That was what it was like. And it was like that for about 90 seconds or so. It was intense. And then afterwards, the recovery phase where you're just laying down and just breathing naturally was just bliss. It was beautiful. It was so relaxing and calming. And what I came to realize afterwards is that my body had released a lot of DMT, and I just felt tremendous afterwards. So anyway, that was my experience. Have you had what's been your experience with that type of thing?
That sounds about right, man. And I think that depending on the setting and the types of music and other factors of the modalities, you can go even deeper with it. It really is a full psychedelic journey, or at least the cousin of it. It just shows you that your body has the same capabilities to produce these states as the exogenous substances that you would ingest. But I found the same thing, that you go through for me, it's very uncomfortable too with the breathing thing, is I don't really like to be at capacity of my breath. Like I told you, it's not my favorite thing, but I do it. And you can get there pretty quick. Like Wim Hof has a pretty good method too, which is, I think, a little bit less intense than holotropic. And you can still get a pretty good insight into that inner stillness that is the connective fabric of all living things. And it comes from the energy that you use, and that stillness is really wonderful. And I think it has something to do with calming down your nervous system. I think there's been some research that's shown that this breath work can really regulate the nervous system. And so it's an excellent tool.
Yeah, I should have prefaced that by saying that the point of doing this is actually to reduce stress and anxiety and get into a more calm state. And of course, this is the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle podcast. And a lot of the main reason why people tend to drink is because of stress and anxiety. And they perceive that alcohol relieves them of their stress and anxiety. So I guess in this conversation, we're presenting alternative ways or healthier ways of reducing stress and anxiety. A lot of people, well, I know personally, I get there from constant exercise, from good nutrition most of the time. I'm still prone to eating crap food on occasion, but I as long as 85% of the time I'm eating nice and clean. What about psychedelics and ingestibles or ayahuasca or anything? What's been your experience?
I've had a lot of experience over the past almost 10 years now. And it's funny that you should mention, because you're in that mastermind group, the Brotherhood. Yeah. And I was also in that group for a while as well. And through going to Ben's house in Spokane, I met someone who introduced me to the shaman who has brought me through almost 10 years of different types of modalities and healing, and has really become a good friend and a close mentor. So that was also thanks to that networking group. I'm going to get back in that thing. But yeah, I mean, what do you want to know, man? Like there's so much to say. There's a whole world of experience that you can go through with these different personal inner journeys. All the medicines are a bit different. I've seen crazy things come true that started in my brain on these ceremonies and became true in real life. I've seen a lot of different people healed. I've seen, at the last retreat that we hosted, where we're doing some of these plant medicines, someone who had multiple sclerosis and came there on a walker within 6 months had lost 65 pounds. Her MS is completely in remission and she's out of depression. And I see that type of stuff regularly. I'm like, wow, it really heals people. And so it's just been something that, I've been doing quietly for almost a decade with friends, close friends and family,
I did ayahuasca back in Colombia in 2013, I think it was. And people are always going on about ayahuasca had a profound experience. I did not have a profound experience doing ayahuasca. All that happened to me is I drank this thing. I was up in the Colombian jungle. There was like me and 4 of my good friends at the time. There was a shaman. It was controlled. It was overnight, and you drink this plant medicine. They had a fire, and we sat around the fire. And my friends all seemed to have profound experiences. And one of my friend was convulsing. Another friend was kind of off with the fairies. I just kept staring into the fire and having to go to use the bathroom. I must have used the bathroom 24 times in like 6 hours or something. It was just, and people say, oh yeah, that makes sense. You were purging. I'm like, okay, I was purging, but I didn't have any vision. I didn't feel particularly inspired. Nothing really happened. And then a few nights later, two of us, me and one of my friends, went and did it again at a different place, also sort of in another town about an hour away from where we did the one a few nights earlier. And this time I did have a vision. I had a vision of a woman in a red dress, and I decided that must have meant my ex-girlfriend. So I was trying to create a story that, the meaning out of it, even though I didn't really get the meaning. And so I ended up going back to Los Angeles and getting back with my ex-girlfriend at the time, which did not work out ultimately. But I was like, okay, I'm not sure what the point of this was. But then other people say, I changed my life and I changed direction. So for me, it was just a waste of time.
you had one dud for an experience, and the other one told you to get back with your ex.
Yeah, which in hindsight wasn't a good idea. So
Aya is very tricky. I feel like with Aya, I've done maybe 10 to 15 Aya ceremonies. Okay.
Wow. And okay. You're an expert. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not compared to some people, compared to most people, but not to some of the people that I know, but either way, so 10 to 15 Aya ceremonies over about 10 years. And I've probably only had 2 or 3 that have really blown the top off me. One in particular that is a seminal experience for me. And it was the only time I ever did ayahuasca out of the country, which was in Peru. And I feel like in Peru, they do it right. I'm not sure in Colombia, what they're doing out, but in Peru. And but I feel like mostly ayahuasca is very temperamental and it doesn't always work. My mom tried it as well. It did nothing for her, but it made her sick. I've seen it also happen where if we have a group of 10 people, sometimes 2 people won't get anything from it, and that's just the way it goes. But there are other things you can do, like, for instance, 5-MeO DMT, which will just blast past all that. You won't have an opportunity and it will just take you,
Well, yeah, I was going to actually bring that up. I have actually tried 5-MeO DMT. I did it twice. And just for the uninitiated who are listening, it's kind of like called toad medicine. They take it from secretions of the Bufo alvarius toad. And it's actually illegal in most Western countries. So it's illegal to own it or to distribute it. It's classified as a Schedule 1 drug. Is it Schedule 1 or Schedule I? I'm not sure.
Well, we'll say in Portland, it's completely decriminalized in Oregon.
It's decriminalized.
Every drug in Oregon has been decriminalized. Every drug.
Oh, I see. Okay. I didn't know that. Yeah.
So you can only get a fine.
I see. Okay. Well, okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah, no, I know.
For the most part, it's illegal in the US, Australia, Canada, and UK. I was in Bali, Indonesia, when I experimented with it.
That's risky. Bali is very strict, man. Indonesia does not play with drugs.
Okay, cool. So,
when you're flying in on the plane, they literally tell you if you have drugs in Indonesia, it's a lifetime prison sentence. Have a good day.
Yeah, I wasn't taking it in there.
No, I know.
Yeah. I went to so the way it worked was I went to someone's villa. They had it. I used it.
I know. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah. I want to be just clear here that I'm not talking about.
Well, no, I mean,
distributing
I accidentally
illegal drugs here.
I had some edibles in my bag that I didn't know about from California, flying into Indonesia. And I'm like, oh my God, hope these freaking Indonesian drug dogs don't pick up on these 2 watermelon THC gummies that were in my fucking side pocket that no one cares about. And I go to lifetime prison in Indonesia for this.
Yeah. You got to be careful.
Yep.
But anyway, my experience of it was, how do I even describe this? So just for the uninitiated again, you smoke it. It's just like it's like you breathe in smoke from a pipe for about 3 seconds. So basically, they've got the gland of the toad. They put it in a glass bowl, and then you light a cigarette lighter, and you heat up the bowl, and the smoke comes into the bowl, and then you very slowly inhale the smoke. And what happened was that about 3 seconds after I started inhaling, my what happened to what I saw, everything kind of smashed into a million perfectly shaped pieces. It was almost like a pane of glass shattering. And then you lay back. I was sitting down at the time. I lay back, head on a pillow, and you kind of go on this quote unquote journey where it was like colors and but you couldn't think clearly. Like I tried to think my way out of it the whole time and like be conscious of what was going on, but you just couldn't. I just couldn't. There were colors. I couldn't control anything. And then it supposedly lasted. I was in it for about 20 minutes. It felt like I was in it for 5. And when I came out of it, what I got at everything, all the colors of where I did this were much brighter, much bolder. Things were more vivid. Things were crystal clear. And what I got out of the experience was that the word that came up for me was the word surrender, because the whole journey I was trying to think my way out of it. I was trying to control the situation. I was trying to think my way out of it, and I couldn't. Every time I'd try to have a thought, boom, I'd just go off somewhere else.
Yep.
And so the lesson I took out of it was surrender, which is stop trying to control outcomes and just surrender to the outcome. So that was a profound lesson for me. I can't say definitively that I loved the experience. I can't say that it was pleasurable.
Yeah.
It wasn't like awful. It was kind of more like unpleasant.
It's like skydiving. It's like, it wasn't that bad, but I don't necessarily, I'm not craving to go skydiving.
No.
You've gone skydiving, right?
No, I've done
or bungee jumping, maybe
paragliding. And
same thing, bless you. Yeah. Same thing. It's like, that wasn't so bad, but it's hard to see doing it that many times, right. That being said, I have done a lot of DMT. And yeah, those experiences are completely true for me as well. And I've also felt through that, not just the visual sensation, but the expansiveness of the human brain. For me, there's a part where with the DMT, my personality gets stripped away, where you can't think, so you can't be conscious, so your personality melts away. And then I was connected to the source of all knowledge, and I felt for a while that I could hold it while I was in that space. And when I was able to leave that space, I couldn't really remember everything that I had learned, but my brain felt like it was just a bit bigger, like almost like a tiny bit of the map had been revealed. There's more in there, and I could feel that some wisdom had been gained, but it's kind of like an unutterable wisdom. It's a knowing of how things really are based on something that you can see and only experience directly. But it's very hard to describe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am not encouraging people to do this, by the way. I'm not encouraging people to do any of this. I'm just sharing my experience with it. And I know that you're just sharing your experience with it as well.
Yeah, it's not right for everybody. But I will say, you know, there's a reason why people call it medicine. You know, you can engage with these substances, and you can do a lot of, I mean, we started this episode talking about, you know, integrating some of these painful things in your life. And these medicines are ways to access those deeply subconscious states that are floating beneath the surface, not only with your personal subconscious, but the collective subconscious, the collective unconscious, as you would say. It's like there's a connection between all humans and all living things, and there's a value in interacting with that, I feel.
Yeah. A lot of times people drink or overeat or have love addiction or sex addiction, alcohol addiction, whatever it is because of those unconscious behaviors. There's something underneath the surface that we're unaware of, or that we're aware of consciously, but we don't know what it is. That might show up as, wow, I've got everything that a human being could seemingly want. I've got a nice house. I've got a wife or a husband. I've got kids. I've got a good job, but I just don't feel good. There's just something not quite right.
Yep.
And we don't know what that is. And so people then turn to things like alcohol or shopping or love, you know, and get into that addiction stage to kind of deal with that, to cope with the pain of their experience of being human. And a lot of the work that I do, certainly in my business and what our amazing coaches do with alcohol-free lifestyle, is help people to stop drinking. But it's not just about how do I get them to stop drinking. It's how do I get them to be more aware and conscious of their behaviors that are getting them to seek refuge in alcohol. So have you become aware of some things in your life that was painful to get to? And now that you've become aware, you've been able to change habits, for example?
Well, I just want to touch briefly on the addiction thing. You know, there's been a good amount of research, and I think I can quote again Stan Grof here, because he was talking about how when they have done studies of why people say that they became addicted, what they're really looking for, most people, when it comes down to it, are looking for an experience of the divine through drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever, anything that they're trying to do to create that altered state. Because you can have everything that you say you want, or sometimes you don't have everything, but you know, you're still searching, and there's nothing external that you can acquire that will complete you and to make you feel really whole. Most people are looking for some deep confirmation of a source within, and we're using external means to try to find the internal. And so, for me, whether it's been, these healing modalities like the holotropic breathing or the psychedelics, that has confirmed for me within that there's like a deep source of power. And so it's given me a lot of confidence. In terms of my habits, it's just made me more aware that everything I'm experiencing, I'm creating. So most of the time we go throughout our daily lives and we're just like clicking away at things, and we're kind of just like being an automaton robot going throughout your day. But if you're really able to focus on what you're doing with intention and not get sucked into the social media and not get sucked into all the bullshit and the other things that are going to drain your energy, you can tap into the source of energy that is ever present in there and really focus and build things with your intention. And there have been things that I've put my mind to, where I've tapped into that source and I've created it quickly, because I've learned what my true power is. And that has helped me in my daily routines, and it's helped me in my overall awareness of self.
I listened to a wonderful audio that you had put together about a month or so ago.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that, because what you just shared, I can see stuff that you've learned, you put into that particular guided audio. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I'd love to. I definitely pride myself on being a multi-talented person, multi-creative. And one of the formats I love is audio. And so, as you know, we have my podcast as well, and that's a 7-day-a-week podcast. But I also put out mixtapes. And in the past, I've done them to promote different projects. So I did a mixtape a few years back to promote my book, and that actually did pretty well. Like, mixtape itself did pretty well. And then I put out audio series along the way. I think it's a great form of teaching. A lot of my favorite gurus, I guess you could say, instructors, they're older people. So they don't really have all the new YouTube stuff, but they do have audio tapes from back in the day, and I think that's a great way to learn. It's just internalized, even though podcasts are, the new way, and, the new wave, you should say. And so I like putting out audio series as well. And I wanted to come up with a unique way to bridge the gap between like lifestyle and self-development. And I think that most people appreciate that if they're going to spend time listening to content that is entertaining, and it's also going to give them something at the end. So I wanted to create a mixtape or an audio series that would combine really nice, like a musical accompaniment to a series of questions to guide business owners or ambitious people through a thought process of, developing their plan for their life. So we called this mixtape Power Packs. And there's, it's one in a series. We released the first one back in April or May. And it is like 22 questions on basically business and life. And as you listen to this series, which has nice curated music and some sound effects and just some nice narration, you can take a notebook, or you can just sit back in your favorite chair. You can drink a glass of club soda with lime. And you can just go through these simple exercise questions in your head, and then you can start to reveal a little bit about what's important to you, what direction you're headed in your life, what some of your big goals are, and how you're going to accomplish them. And it's simple and painless. It pulls out the information effortlessly, and you can get it for free.
Yeah, where do we get that?
Just go to newwaveentrepreneur.com. That's where my podcast is hosted and everything I'm working on. So you can check it out there. And I have a coupon code on the website, so you can get the whole thing. It's like $100, but if you want it for free, fine, take it. I'll put it on sale later for Christmas or something, then you don't have to pay. But I'll release a few more. And in the meantime, this is a gift for everyone.
Thanks, Daniel. That's newwaveentrepreneur.com.
You're welcome.
What's been your own experience with alcohol in particular?
I am fairly close to a teetotaler. Is that they still use that word? That's like an old school word.
It's an old school word.
It's an old school word.
Old school word, rather.
Yeah.
But essentially, just means that you drink on occasion. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So for instance, I was in Vegas last week, and I did have a few drinks, and it just confirmed me that I don't really like drinking. It does nothing for me, man. I kind of get a little bit sick. I immediately get a headache, and then I go to bed. And for someone who's really physically active, it's also just it's just really hard on the body. So it's just not fun for me, and that will probably be my drink of the year. I don't even really have a casual drink. I did have a glass of wine I enjoyed, but generally speaking, it's not part of my daily, weekly, or even monthly routine.
Yeah,
a couple times a year max.
Couple times a year only, you'll have alcohol.
I might not have it again this year. I had it twice in Vegas, and I said, meh.
So what do you think separates you having that relationship with alcohol versus another entrepreneur of a similar age or similar experience from like, oh my God, I have to have a drink, and the idea of stopping drinking is just so overwhelming that it's ugh.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that really hammered home the relationship with alcohol for me. It's not just the physical sensation. It's the fact that I have just made some dumb personal life choices when being drunk. I mean, I could name a few of them. It's not really even worth the time, but I just think back to those experiences, and I think the main reason you did that was because you were drinking. It didn't do anything for you. It only set you back. This is not worth it. Okay, I'll tell you one. I did drink on my wedding 4 or 5 years ago, okay? And we had a great night. And I mean, everyone, like I was with like 10 people, like my parents, a few members of my older family, besides Sarah's family, my dad, her brothers. It was a big party crew, and we were all drinking. So it was a super fun time. But then we couldn't get into the karaoke bar where we were supposed to have our after party. And they wouldn't let us in because Sarah, my wife, who was clearly the bride that we just got married, didn't have her ID with her. She forgot her ID. So it's like, this is clear. We already booked the reservation for this. So they're like, we can't prove that she's not above 21. I'm like, bitch, we just got married. It's obvious. We're with old people. We're with like my 65-year-old aunt who can barely walk. We're with my dad who's getting rowdier by the minute. We're with Sarah's family. It's like, let's get in here. We want to do karaoke. We already paid for it. They weren't letting us in the door. Okay. And they were like, oh, no, the ABC regulations, this and that. And that was starting to make me get pissed off. So then I started to talk real rash. And I was like, what did I say? I said something like, that's right, you punk ass bitch. And so that got them real mad. And so then they started to flink up, and then my dad was going to start to fight, and people were getting in the middle of it. And I was like, oh, looking back on that, I'm like, oh, man. And like there's this big 300-pound Samoan dude who was barking like a dog trying to get to me. And some other guy was like, better watch out. Niggas around here have guns. I'm like, guns over what? We're trying to get into the fucking karaoke bar. We just got married. What are you talking about? But it just showed me that if you're drunk and you don't have discernment, you will not act correctly in the situation, and you could inadvertently hurt yourself, and also in your family too. So I was like, it wasn't worth it. My dad would have loved to fight too. He would have loved it. But my mom could have gotten punched. Like it was bad, man. But he was a bitch.
Problem with alcohol is that it makes you do things you don't want to do.
Yeah. Or it just wouldn't be smart to do. I mean, I would have thought that thought, and then I would have moved on.
Yeah.
But I created a potential issue. I created a potentially dangerous situation just from my ego flaring up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a good enough reason, and that's just one of a few things I can name in my life. I'm like, what do I need this for? I don't need this.
Yeah. You're a business owner, and you network with other business owners, and you have clients, etc. When clients come on retreats with you or workshops, or you're networking, you're the host, for example, and you only drink once or twice a year, is there an expectation from your guests or clients that you'll provide alcohol, or are they surprised when alcohol is not involved? Do you feel any pressure to provide alcohol given cultural conditioning?
I don't know. Part of it is, I didn't grow up with too much alcohol in my house. So for me, it's not like we have wine at every event or beer at every event. But, I will say that I'm okay with bringing it and then not partaking in it. So for instance, I host these different networking events and these parties, and, I will bring a bottle of champagne for people, and I'll pop the champagne and then I'll pour it in their glasses, and then I'll toast it, and then I'll put it down and get some water or something. I don't care. No one cares. No one cares. It's like you thinking about what other people are thinking about is draining you of the energy that you need to do to live your life.
Right.
I feel like that's more of a adolescent thing to pressure someone into doing anything they want to do. As an adult, you just tend to be like, listen, I got my own plan for my life.
Yeah.
you know?
It's interesting to me though, how many folks join our Project 90 experience where we help them stop drinking for 90 days who are in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah. Who
still feel that social pressure to drink and still feel that social awkwardness if they're not drinking.
It is surprising, but I guess it's like anything else. You stick with your environment, and you have to, or you're conditioned by your environment. You have to kind of be aware of that. I do think it is harder to exist in an environment where everything is telling you to do the opposite. So for instance, I always think about you like, oh, have a club soda and lime, please. Cause I really do that. I mean, it's a very convenient, easy thing to do. But I have to think too, like if people aren't really, if they're going to give you that much shit for not drinking, they're not your real friends. None of my actual friends would give me any shit for a personal decision like that. They just, because no one cares. So that is the bigger issue. It's not like, well, just be strong and get a club soda. It's like, if these people are riding on you, fuck them. I mean, respectfully,
Yeah. And it's crazy to give that advice to someone who's in their 50s or 60s. It's like, because, you think, well, you just, by that stage, there's
you'd think
Yeah, but and it's not to cultural conditioning is so strong.
It's very strong.
Yeah.
Also, we haven't even talked about the addiction factor of it, which is it's not just the cultural conditioning; it's I'm literally addicted to it. To hold and I'm addicted to living the lifestyle that is conducive of the drinking, which is a different thing. So it's if you're a finance executive in New York, the business goes along with the pleasure, and you're not stopping drinking anytime soon. Probably, unless you really make some changes, because it's partially your lifestyle as well as the habit itself that are holding each other up.
Lifestyle is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you're spending time with people who glorify alcohol, then you're probably going to glorify alcohol, or at least consume it.
You know what? I would also encourage you guys to look at some of your favorite celebrities that own alcohol brands. Most of them don't drink. And what does that tell you?
Yeah.
Most of them aren't doing the things that they're promoting. Even like, for instance, Future, who's a famous rapper, a lot of his rap is about drugs and party drugs, but he's like, I don't do drugs. I'm actually a lightweight, but he's marketing a certain lifestyle because it seems cool. Same thing with the alcohol companies. You think Conor McGregor is out there getting shit faced all the time? No, he's in the gym training. Okay. He's a professional. He's marketing to you. So don't get those things confused.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, has a very successful tequila brand, I think.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
It kind of pisses me off a little bit. It does. Because, he's over here talking about healthy lifestyle. And I understand that you can still have a healthy lifestyle and have some tequila. It's not like they're mutually exclusive. But it just seems a little bit contradictory to what the values would be. Not to mention, again, I don't have any proof of this, but we can clearly look and say, this man is enhanced. He's been taking anabolics for years. It's fine. It's part of his career. There's no way he'd be able to be that age and that raw of condition working those many hours. To me, it just doesn't scream healthy lifestyle, but that's what's marketed to you. It's like, okay, if you wanted to be on steroids and have a personal chef cater to your needs all the time, and then post up, your shot of tequila, that's giving a different appearance than what you're, what I'm saying, than what you should be promoting.
Yeah. I interviewed Dwayne Johnson several times back when I was a Hollywood correspondent, entertainment reporter in another life. And I always found him very charming and very nice.
Oh, he's charming.
But in recent years, I've been a little bit disappointed by when I found out he was pushing a tequila brand. I was like, I don't know about that. I'm not sure. That didn't really feel good. It didn't feel in alignment with what I perceive his values to be. But I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with me as well. And that might be the thing.
Look, every celebrity's jumping on the alcohol bandwagon is what I'm trying to say. The Rock, fucking George Clooney, Conor McGregor, I think Jared Leto has alcohol. All these, anybody who is a celebrity tries to get an alcohol ban now. And I understand. It's very lucrative. It's so cheap to make. And you can sell it for whatever you want. And, P. Diddy, Jay-Z, it's like, they're not in the 50 Cent, Rick Ross. They're not all getting drunk off their own stuff. They're collecting the money, you know?
Yeah. Daniel, this has been fun. We talked about dreams, talked about ayahuasca, 5-MeO, DMT, talked about alcohol, talked about mindset, business, language. Thanks for sharing some time with me and with our listeners.
Thank you so much. That was really fun.
Yeah. And to you, the listener, thanks so much for being here. Check out Daniel's Power Packs. Again, the the website is newwaveentrepreneur.com, especially if you're an entrepreneur or business owner and you want some guided questions to help you get clear in your business. I highly recommend it. And thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Here are 5 ways I can support you on your health journey. Number 1, the Better AF group support. You can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/betteraf. That is group virtual coaching to help you to stop drinking. The YouTube channel at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/YouTube. The book, Alcohol Freedom Formula, can be found at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. My liver cleanse from my supplements company, Swan Vitality, at swanvitality.com. And protect your eyes from screens by wearing a pair of Swannies blue light blocking glasses from my sleep company, Swanwick Sleep. You can find that at swannies.com. Catch you on the next one.